Would you say the culture of England and Australia are similar?
In most respects, I would, yes. I would say that Australia is probably a lot more laid back than England.
And what would you consider to be the main differences between the culture of England and Australia?
I think, like I said, that Australia is more laid back, easygoing. I think people interact with each other a lot more here, and it's kind of a more neighbourly environment. I think it's kind of a bit like the UK was maybe kind of 30 years ago here.
Would you say that communication in England is primarily verbal or non-verbal?
Verbal.
Would you say that communication in Australia is primarily verbal or non-verbal?
Again, verbal.
Have you found it difficult to become accustomed to the differences in communication?
No, not really. I mean, the only difference is that I find that Australians are a lot more literal than Brits. We tend to say one thing and it can mean something very different depending on what the point we're trying to get across. You know, we can be very sarcastic and use that. So we often say something very positive and mean negative, or vice versa. Whereas kind of Australians tend to say what they mean.
Do you believe that your cultural heritage has affected how you communicate in Australian society?
Probably. It's. I think being in an area where there's, you know, the population's a lot more crowded, you kind of, you know, you have to kind of find your way amongst the many, and it does make you kind of a little bit more kind of forceful with what you want to do and how you deal with people, I think. Whereas, like I say, getting used to the Australian sort of manana way, whereas, you know, us Brits, you know, if we're going to do something, it gets done right now. And when someone here sort of says, yeah, I'm going to do it, it could mean today, it could mean tomorrow. So, yeah.
Has this changed at all during your time here?
A little bit. I think, you know, as a family, we've all become a lot more kind of accustomed to that laid back feel, and it's nice. It's the pressure's off, and you don't feel like everything has to be done straight away, and you know, it's nice. It's more relaxing.
Have your methods of communication changed after you moved from England to Australia?
Not a lot, not really. Like I say, I've had to be a little bit more careful how I say things sometimes. but yeah, I think usually if you kind of give people the hint with a big smile or something, they usually get the joke.
Yeah. Have advances in technology helped or hindered this communication?
Hasn't really made a lot of difference.
How has the primary religion of England affected your attitude towards Australian values?
Pretty much we just moved from one to the other. It's been very much the same. So, yeah.
Have your beliefs been accepted in Australia?
Yes.
How can you tell?
Well, obviously our children have been integrated into school that kind of harbours our religion, and you know, it's all coffee. Nothing's really changed. Sorry.
Which customs of England are accepted by Australian culture?
I think pretty much everything. I think the two countries integrate very well together, which probably explains why there's a lot of people that move from one to the other.
Yeah. What elements of your culture are practiced in Australia?
I'd say it's pretty, you know, they pretty much say the same and same.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's. I think the main difference we've found here is the attitude towards children is different. So children are encouraged to be children for longer here, which is something that we're very much in favour of. They're encouraged to, you know, to dress more like children, act more like children.
Yeah.
More, the number of children here that play instruments is huge, absolutely huge, and that's really influenced our life as well.
Okay.
And but that's very different to in the UK. The outdoor activities are more pronounced here because obviously it's got better weather for it.
Yeah.
But and you know, there's more social groups rather than sort of hanging out on the street and things like that, which is that's the main difference.
Okay. Has your culture become more or less accepted during your time here?
I'd say, you know, we've more accepted the culture here more than the other way around, I think.
Okay. Do you believe gender roles within the family in England and Australia are very different?
No.
How do gender roles affect the way people in society communicate?
I think in both England and Australia, I think the genders are now respected as fairly equal. You know, obviously there's things like pay, which is not as great, and there's there's kind of stereotypes which are a little bit silly, but generally speaking, it's not so much of an issue.
Have you experienced miscommunication or misunderstandings due to cultural differences?
Probably just what I said before about this, the kind of the sarcasm and things like that. Sort of with my music teachers, for instance, I'll say something that's very tongue-in-cheek, and they take it very literally, and you say, no, I wasn't trying to offend you. I was just winking and nods of being silly. But yeah, that's not much though.
Have you been stereotyped in Australia because of your cultural background?
Only in a fun Brit kind of way, and I give as good as I get. So I think we're fine. Yeah, no, it's not been hard at all. Again, I think that's to do with there's a lot of Brits living in Australia, and I think as long as you kind of join in with everybody else and you become part of the community and you give back, I think we've been very welcomed.
Do you find Australians racist?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of racism in both countries. In the UK, it very much varies depending on where you are. So it depends whether the community is already more integrated. So where I grew up was very different from the last place that I lived, where one was very multicultural. Nobody kind of blinked an eye at different races or religions or anything like that, whereas the last place I lived wasn't, and people were quite racist. And I do think in general Australians are quite racist.
Yeah. How has the environment of England shaped the culture?
Again, probably that kind of being so many people in such a very tight sort of space. Here you have so much room and there's so few people, so it's kind of less stressful. But when there's so many people all the time, so for instance getting on a train and you're literally packed like sardines, it can be very stressful, it can be very difficult, and it does kind of get people quite irate, and and that does affect you, and it's just nice to be
How has the culture of England shaped communication?
I think people have they communicate less with each other because of technology now. Like I say, it's very ironic that there's so many people so close together, like we said, but nobody kind of speaks to each other anymore.
Yeah.
So, for instance, when you go into a shop or you get off a bus, people here tend to say good morning, thank you, etc. But in the UK, nobody says thank you, please, or anything anymore. It's eyes down and get on with it. It's just too much, too many people, and what have you. So people don't really communicate with each other anymore. It's just text, and they don't sort of see family anymore like they used to. It's just communication through that way. Whereas again, here the difference is that you guys still kind of very much family orientated and communication. So the moral of the tale is put the phone down. Go say hi.
That's it.